Welcome to the Young Lawyer Podcast. It's great to have you on. If you can just start by introducing yourself and how you began your legal journey.
Sure. So my name's Harrison Humphries. I'm the head of litigation and dispute resolution at Clifford Gouldson Lawyers here in Toowoomba. Uh, we've got offices in Toowoomba, Brisbane, and just recently the Sunshine Coast. Um, Legal journey. So I was probably go right back to year 11 actually, where I was deciding what I might want to do after I left school, and I was talking to my modern history teacher of all people, uh, and we were talking about it. And he asked me what I was going to do, and I said, "Oh, I think I might become a PE teacher." And because I'd had a similar conversation earlier with my PE teacher, and he convinced me that was a good idea, and it sounded like a good idea. He said, "No, I think you should aim a bit higher." I thought, "Oh, it's a bit rude to PE teachers," uh, but anyway, it did give me thinking of other options. And then the careers guy at school said, "Hey, listen, there's some firms here in town who offer these sort of clerkships. Um, you should look into that." And so I did, and anyway, that seemed to be the way to go. So I put my preferences down as law at QUT, who offered it externally, and as school was finishing, went to a few interviews with those firms, and was lucky enough to get a job with another local firm here in Toowoomba, Heed, Burn Hall. So I started there in January 2006 after finishing school in November '05, and the rest is history. Studied uh, law externally through QUT whilst working full time at Heed, Burn Hall, and graduated December 2010 and admitted June 2011.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting to actually kind of just go with it straight out of high school. And most people, including myself, I've spoken to, they've all had that, I guess, kind of that phase after school of not knowing really what you wanted to do. But I guess, what was it about law that you're just like, nah, this is pretty much it. Like, if I get this, I'm going straight for it.
I think I've always liked reading and writing and the humanities at school. So my favourite subjects were, apart from PE, English and drama, and Japanese was enjoyable as well. So I guess reading and writing appealed to me, and I had an interest in finding out what appearing in court was like. Um, but I guess too, advising people and answering their questions at a base level is a lot of what a lawyer does. So that appealed to me, and I guess it's a bit cliched, but helping people in tough spots uh, has never left me really, as one of the reasons why I do it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty much in the same box, problem solver and wanting to help people. And I think that's what it digs down to. Really, a lot of us, that's all we want to do. And, being a lawyer is definitely one way to do it. How did you find, I guess, your journey through studying while working at the same time?
Tough at times, as a younger person, there were a lot of other things competing for my time, or so it seemed. Lucky enough, I lived at home until I think I didn't think it moved out until early 2011. So just as I was sort of finishing off my graduate diploma of legal practice, the PLT course through College of Law, was when I finally moved out. So working full time and studying, or it ranged from 2 subjects a semester up to 4 some semesters. Um, Living at home really helped with that. But there were some tough times in that. Trying to, after a big day's work, logging back in and doing some study or doing some assignments until late at night, and then repeating the process again for a whole week. Wasn't easy at times, but it did prepare me, I think, for life as a practicing litigator, because at times that gets pretty hectic as well. You're up early and you're into it at work, and then you go right through until late at night, and you might be up and in the car early to go to Brisbane for court at 10 a.m. or earlier the next day. So it was probably a good preparation for that.
And I guess what was your mindset when, like, at that stage? Like, I know you look back now and you're probably thankful for it, but at that stage, like, what was your mindset? Is it just, "Oh, I've got to get through this? And I guess what tips would you give to someone in a similar position who's working full time and studying full time and just trying to cope with the pressures of it all?
It's a good question. I think initially I would say that there is light at the end of the tunnel, uh, and that hope uh, should be enough most of the time to get you through, because it is all worth it if you're enjoying the work, the practical aspects of it, then the theory isn't forever, and it is necessary. I mean, it does come in handy a fair bit. I do say though that the law degree is probably 50% of what we do as lawyers, and the other 50% is managing and dealing with clients, and applying it practically to their situation, but also taking into account their other circumstances, and working out what's best for them. But to answer the second part of your question, sometimes that light at the end of the tunnel isn't enough. And I guess that's when you lean on your support networks, friends, family. What helped me was knowing other people who are in the same situation, that we could relate to each other. So I was lucky enough that at my firm there were two other guys at any given point in time who had done the same thing I did, or who were just finishing off doing what I'd started. Um, and there were other guys at other firms in Toowoomba who were doing the same subjects as me, and basically going through together. And they were working full time and studying part time or up to full time. So that really helped. But for others who may not be lucky enough to have other people in their firm or in the same town doing the same thing, then doing what we're doing right now, video conferencing or getting on the phone or social media, that's what I'd suggest is find somebody in the same position and just find out what's working for them and what's not. And it's about being organised. I mean, time management's critical and all of that. Because yes, you can to some degree leave it to the last minute, but it's hard when you got to go to work. I mean, you can't just cram that last day. You really only got that last night, so you do have to do a bit leading up to it.
Yeah, that really touches on some interesting points. Like, in particular, networking is big. It's a big thing. Like, a lot of us in the legal industry, we're all pretty happy to put our hand up to chat to someone. We're, happy to go have coffee. So I think for young lawyers in particular, or even uni students, it's particularly important to reach out if they're having trouble and actually discuss that. And then the second thing is, obviously, as you said, it can be daunting, and it is good to reach out. So that's when people really need to focus and give up, actually take care of their mental health, and take time to actually relax and prioritize what they need to do next. Now, you said you were into litigation. Were you always into litigation, or did you just fall into it, or how did that process happen?
Yeah, so the first sort of substantive legal work that I did at Heedburn Hall was in debt collection, firstly for the firm, and then for clients, and just started with simple sort of basic stuff, letters of demand and repayment arrangements, and then moved on to simple magistrates court proceedings, undefended stuff, and it really branched out from there. And then a natural flow on from there is insolvency, so getting a bit of experience in those areas, and didn't get exposed a lot to other areas, but did get enough to know that litigation and dispute resolution, at least in a civil sense, I've never done a lot of family law, and but at Heedburn Hall, I did a little bit of criminal law and found that quite interesting. Did a fair bit of personal injury, whereas I don't do any personal injury, criminal law, or family here at Clifford Gouldson. But just got exposed to enough areas where litigation was a central part of it to know that that's where I wanted to specialise, and the opportunity at Clifford Gouldson was in that section, whereas at Heedburn Hall I don't necessarily have true sections. Whereas here, you are allocated to a section, and that's all the work that you do. But luckily for me, that's what I've enjoyed, and that's what I've had the most exposure to.
And do you feel like because you had, I guess, touched on so many different topics at your original firm that it actually led you to finding something that you did enjoy and obviously focus on and refine your skills in that area down the track?
Yeah, that's right. It helped me because I did have a bit of exposure to commercial and property, including conveyancing, and I knew that I didn't like that. So sometimes it's important to know what you don't like to try and identify what you do like. And unless you get exposed to as wide a scope of legal work as possible, you're not going to work out what you don't like. And that's harder these days because the profession is becoming more specialised every year. So unless you're fortunate enough to get into one of those big firm sort of clerkships or work experience where they do rotations, then or then the other end of the scale, if you're with a micro firm with a general practitioner or a sole practitioner, you'll get exposed to many different areas. But in between, it's tough to get exposure to different areas of law. And so, unless you do, you don't know what you don't like. So that would be a tip, definitely. Put your hand up if an opportunity arises to have a go at, a file that you know nothing about. As a junior lawyer or even a law clerk, absolutely give it a shot.
Yeah, that's such great advice, and it's definitely, I think, something uni students would definitely look at too if they're not currently in a firm. Is put your hand up, just do a few days here, do a few days there, just try different firms until they find what they do and they don't like.
I couldn't. Sorry, Damon, I couldn't recommend that enough. That's the biggest. If there's one piece of advice I can give during this podcast, and whoever else will ask me in that position, it is get as much practical experience as you can, whether it's paid, unpaid, in a firm or with government or whoever. If it's legal work, it's becoming very competitive to get jobs. There are a lot of law students and law grads, and not that many positions these days for pre-admission or people doing their PLT or even shortly post-admission. So just get a foot in the door as soon as and as often as you can.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Well, that's coming towards the end of my questions. My final one is, what do you know now that you wish you knew back when you first started?
That's a good one. I'd like to say that one thing I have learnt is to back yourself to a certain degree. It's a fine line because lawyers are held to a pretty high standard when it comes to their professional obligations, and I would never recommend or even suggest that people skirt the line when it comes to their ethical obligations. But I think in dealings with clients, the other side, whoever, by and large, I think junior lawyers are more afraid of stuffing up than they are of giving advice and backing themselves. I mean, there's a way of doing it. You can say, look, I'm pretty sure it's this, or I'm reasonably certain it's this, or I believe it's this. But then you can say, look, but I can check that if you like, or I can look that up, or I can go and talk to my supervisor about that if you want me to. So I guess you at the same time give whoever you're talking to the confidence that you know what you're talking about and that you can help them. But at the same time, you are covering yourself in case what you said wasn't quite right. Um, so that's something that I wish I was more confident about earlier on.
Yeah, that's such great advice for others junior lawyers too. Well, thank you so much for jumping on and giving up your time today. If people want to get in contact with you, how do they go about that if they want to have a chat?
Yeah, sure. So email address is Harrison, HARRISON at cglaw.com.au, or our firm's number is 4688 2188.
Alrighty. Well, thanks again. Well, I hope to stay in touch, and whenever I get down to Brisbane, depending on COVID, hopefully get to catch up with everyone and get to network properly.
Where are you based now, Damon?
In the Sunshine Coast.
Sunny Coast. Yeah, nice. We just I don't know if are you aware of the firm On Site Law?
Um,